I didn't plan to record this tonight. The house is already asleep, and I'm trying not to wake it. The clock ticks louder than it used to. Or maybe I just hear it more now. My name is Edward, and I'm 85 years old. Saying that out loud still feels strange. I don't feel like a number. I feel like a room that's been lived in too long, where the furniture remembers more than the person sitting in it. The video is called, I'm 85 and I set the table for someone else, and I keep wondering if that title gives too much away. But maybe it doesn't. Maybe it only makes sense at the end. Or maybe it never fully makes sense. Some things don't. I'm speaking quietly because my breath isn't as reliable as it once was. And because when you get to this age, you learn not to raise your voice unless it really matters. Most things don't anymore. There's a small table in front of me. 2 chairs. Always 2. I polished it this morning without thinking. Same way I've done for years. Same motion. Same cloth. Same pause when I reached the second place setting. That pause is what finally pushed me to talk. I've lived a long life. Not an important one. Just a long one. I worked. I showed up. I paid bills. I missed some things. I pretended not to notice others. From the outside, it probably looked complete. Inside, it was quieter than people think. I grew up believing that life would explain itself eventually. That if I kept moving, kept providing, kept my head down, clarity would catch up to me. I didn't question that belief for decades. It felt solid, responsible, safe. There was a woman once. I won't say her name yet. Names carry weight, and I don't want to drop it too early. She liked setting the table, even when it was just the 2 of us. Especially then. She said it made the meal feel finished before it began. I used to smile at that and sit down without really listening. I was good at sitting down. I wasn't as good at arriving. Most nights, I came home tired in ways I didn't know how to describe. My body would be there, but my mind stayed somewhere else, still counting, still planning, still preparing for a future that always felt one step ahead of us. She would talk while she cooked. Small things. Who she ran into. What she read. Something she remembered from before we met. I answered enough to seem present. Enough to pass. I thought that was love. Or at least close enough. The table was always set. 2 plates. 2 glasses. Sometimes a candle, even when it wasn't necessary. I never asked why she kept doing that. I just ate, thanked her, and moved on to whatever I thought needed my attention more. Time does that quietly. It convinces you there will be another dinner, another conversation, another chance to lean in properly. Years pass faster when you're not watching them. One evening, I came home later than usual. The food was cold. The table was still set. She was sitting there, hands folded, not eating. I remember feeling annoyed before I felt anything else. Annoyed that the timing was off. Annoyed that I was being waited on in a way I hadn't asked for. She said something then. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a sentence. I don't remember the exact words anymore, and that bothers me more than it should. What I remember is how little I responded. I nodded. I said tomorrow. I always said tomorrow. Tomorrow has a way of becoming a habit. I didn't know that was one of the last normal evenings we'd have. No warning. No sense of ending. Just another table, another meal, another moment I assumed would repeat. Life doesn't always repeat. The day she left, and I mean left, not died, the table was half set. 1 plate. One glass. She took the other with her, like proof that she had been real. I stood there for a long time, holding a fork I hadn't used yet. I told myself stories then. Practical ones. Reasonable ones. I said people change. I said timing matters. I said we both did our best. Those stories worked for a while. They worked long enough for the years to keep moving. Now the years have slowed. Or maybe I have. Every morning, I still reach for 2 cups before I catch myself. Muscle memory is stubborn. It outlives intention. I didn't set the table for her because I missed her at first. I set it because that's what I was trained to do by repetition, not by understanding. Understanding came much later. It came in the quiet. It came when there was no one left to perform competence for. It came when I realized I had been preparing a life instead of living inside it. I don't feel dramatic about this. I feel late. There's a difference. I'm not angry. I'm not even particularly sad all the time. Mostly, I feel the weight of small, ordinary moments that I treated as permanent when they were anything but. I'm pausing now because my chest feels tight, and because this part deserves space. The table is still here. 2 chairs. Always 2. And somehow, that's where the truth started waiting for me. The truth didn't arrive all at once. It never does. It came in pieces. Quiet ones. The kind you almost ignore because they don't announce themselves. After she left, I told people I was fine. That word became useful. It closed conversations quickly. It saved energy. No one asks follow-up questions when you say it the right way. I learned how to say it the right way. The house changed after that. Not dramatically. Just enough to notice if you were paying attention. Doors closed more softly. Sounds didn't travel as far. Even the light seemed less interested in staying. I kept my routines. That part mattered to me. Same wake-up time. Same walk. Same chair by the window. I told myself this was stability. That this was how adults handled things ending. What I didn't say was that routine felt like proof that I hadn't failed. As long as things looked normal, I could believe something inside me still was. I started setting the table again about a year later. I don't remember deciding to. I just noticed one morning that there were 2 placemats laid out. I stood there, confused, like I'd walked into someone else's kitchen. I laughed, actually. A short laugh. The kind that disappears quickly. I told myself it meant nothing. It meant more than I was ready to carry. There were nights I sat across from the empty chair and caught myself waiting. Not for her exactly. Just waiting. As if something might still arrive late and apologize. Nothing ever did. Friends drifted. Not out of cruelty. Out of life. They had grandchildren. New aches. New priorities. Phone calls became holidays. Then birthdays. Then memories of birthdays. I became very good company for myself. That's what I told people. The truth was quieter. I didn't know how to be company for anyone else anymore. Sometimes I'd replay old evenings in my head. Not the big ones. Not anniversaries or arguments. Just small scenes. Her standing at the stove. Me loosening my tie. The sound of cutlery touching plates. In those memories, I'm always tired. Always distracted. Always almost there. I used to think love was something you felt strongly enough, and then it stayed. I didn't understand that it also needed attention. Not effort. Attention is different. Effort can be loud. Attention is close. That difference took me decades to learn. There's a box in the hallway closet. I avoided it for years. Not because it hurt too much, but because it didn't hurt enough. That scared me more. I worried what that said about me. When I finally opened it, I found small things. Notes. Receipts. A photograph I don't remember taking. We're sitting at that same table. She's looking at me. I'm looking past the camera. That photograph stayed out for a while. I tried keeping it on the shelf. I tried turning it face down. In the end, I put it back in the box. Some truths don't need to be visible to be present. I don't regret my life in the dramatic way people imagine. I don't sit around wishing I'd been someone else. I just wish I'd been more awake while I was here. Waiting feels harmless when you're young. It feels practical. Responsible. At my age, it looks different. It looks like empty chairs and unfinished conversations. I set the table for someone else because I thought that's what love looked like. Providing space. Making room. Being ready when the moment finally arrived. I didn't realize the moment was already sitting across from me. I'm stopping here for a second. My hands are shaking a little, and I don't want that in my voice. The rest of this needs care. I don't know how much longer my voice will sound like this. Some mornings it's steady. Other mornings it feels like it's passing through me instead of coming from me. I've learned not to argue with it. The last time I cleaned the table, I didn't polish it. I just wiped it down enough to remove the dust. I left the marks. I left the scratches. They felt earned. I sat down in one chair. Not the one I usually chose. The other one. It felt wrong at first. Smaller. Closer to the edge. But after a minute, something settled. I noticed things I hadn't before. The way the light hits the wall at that angle. The faint groove where her hand must have rested for years. That's when it finally became clear. I hadn't set the table for her. Not really. I set it for the person I thought I'd become later. The version of myself who would slow down in time. Who would arrive fully present once everything else was handled. That person never showed up. What showed up instead was this: an old man sitting alone, finally honest enough to admit that love doesn't wait for readiness. It just notices whether you're paying attention. I don't replay arguments anymore. I replay absences. Moments where nothing happened because I let them pass. Those are harder to forgive. If she ever thinks of me, and I don't know if she does, I hope she remembers me as someone who meant well, even if he didn't always show it. I hope she felt loved in the ways I didn't understand how to express. I won't know. There's peace in accepting that some questions don't come with answers. At my age, you learn to live with that kind of quiet. I'm tired now. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. The kind that tells you it's okay to stop holding things up. The table will still be here tomorrow. Or maybe it won't. Either way, it doesn't need me anymore. I've said what I needed to say. If you're listening to this, you don't owe me anything. You don't need to take anything from it. You can just sit with it for a moment, or leave it where it is. I'm Edward. I'm 85 years old. And this is the first time I've said all of this out loud. Thank you for staying. Or just for listening.